Welcome to Parenting Solutions for Teen and Preteen Education and Behavior, the show for parents who want real root cause solutions for learning, stress, and behavior at home and at school. Hosted by educators Mike Tyler and myself, Ryan Kimball, each episode gives you practical tools you can use right away to get results. Before we dive in, grab our free ebooks, the Parent's Survival Guide, and the Good Choices booklet. Use the click here link right in the show notes. Okay, let's get started. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Competence Institute podcast. This is Ryan, your host, and I'm very excited to have with us today Danny from Danny Tyrell Studios, and he is going to tell us a little bit about his experience with the study technology. He also goes by Dan Nimowitz, and he runs the Danny Tyrell Studios, and he is going to tell us about what his experience has been with the study technology, how he uses it, and his career as a professional musician, which I'm very excited to hear about. We've not had someone on who's a musician yet, so that should be exciting. So hi, Danny. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself as a professional musician and your career so we can get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Born in Detroit. I grew up during the Motown era. Hit the streets in the middle 60s when Motown was hopping, doing well. Yeah. Had a chance to see the industry grow, see the young people from the streets of Detroit be included in creating worldwide careers and get that music that was available in town. Even to this day, no matter where you go in the jazz world or the good, really good popular music world, you're going to find players that came from Detroit. And this Detroit city is still full of, just loaded with great live music, which isn't the case in other cities so much anymore, my first gig, I was 14 years old. My neighbor hired me to play at a wedding, and I was a trained drummer, and I played something called the vibraphone, and then that was in schooling. But in the kids' band, I played kind of Ray Charles piano, so those two influences together. But the first gig was on vibraphones when I was about 14. My neighbors had a band, and I used to always go sit in their basement and bug them, all the time when they'd be practicing. And finally, they took me with them. That's kind of fun. And then we played through high school. The guys in the neighborhood got together and wrote one hit record. We had one hit record as a group, as writers, and that was called Wait a Minute. It was by a guy named Rick Wiesen. And that was, I don't know, maybe 63. And he ended up getting to sing on the Dick Clark show and that. And but the day I graduated from high school, that most people hung out with their buddies. I actually went to the gig that night, and from that point on, I played pretty much steady till my late 30s. Full time. Because in those days we had 60 bands playing full time. In the city of Detroit. When I mean full time, I mean 6 nights a week and weekend matinees. And what do we do with the high school combo? The young guys, we used to open up for Stevie Wonder, the Four Tops, Diana Ross, and those were at sock hops in the high schools around the city of Detroit. So we got to see those guys firsthand, and fortunately we were okay enough, to be an opening act in the neighborhoods and in the city, and then that grew on past that. So, it just was a different time. How do we go to school for music? We went to the gig. We stayed in the band. You learned three chords, and you played that for a few years, and you learned the fourth chord. You learned that, and then you learn, So it was a graduated. As pop music got more complicated, we got better at it, so that was the life in those days, and that lasted until I would say until the disco era hit. when John Travolta's famous dancing movie,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
after that,
yeah.
people changed the way they combed their hair. They changed the way they dressed.
Sure.
The DJ came into the clubs. The light bulbs were in the thing, and the hippie, grungy rock and roll dudes were out of work. It
Okay.
never went back to what it was before. But honestly, the club work was more formal. Guys would dress would dress nicely, in the Detroit area. The bands would almost, well, you see in the Motown groups, everybody dressed similar clothes and colors and things like that. But great. I mean, it was just for fun. I say a lot of people went golfing. I went banding. You know what I mean?
I like
It's
that.
kind of like hobby / profession / fun kind of thing.
Right.
So that's the intro to my
Wow.
music career.
That sounds exciting. Sounds like,
Yeah, it
it's
was fun.
full of life. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was fortunate
Very
that
cool.
I
Well,
was always in
so
the band where
how,
the guys
go
were.
ahead.
I was always fortunate where most of the players in the bands were better than me, just enough to pull me up and pull me along. I was a younger guy, and
Nice,
and so it just was a series of circumstances that overall worked in my favor.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like quite an adventure, and you kind of self-taught and grew as the music grew from what you said.
Yep. Yeah, it was terrific and
Huh.
good guys. I mean, the Motown guys, it was a job. They're basically the next generation from me. I'm like younger guy than those, and they they worked 9 to 5, 5 days a week. It was a production. I mean, they taught people how to dance. If people ever can go to the Motown Museum, take it, take the time to go, because it'll give you insight as to how they cultivated raw talent in a very production-like way, teaching them to dance, dressing, manners, and it was really well done. I mean,
Wow,
my hat is off to them.
wow, wow, whole
Yeah.
culture. Nice. Well, so tell us, how did study tech come into your life? At what point was that a part of what you were doing, and how did it influence things?
Yeah, I was always interested in, like, I took 2 years of music school, and then as years went by, I'd go now and then. And um, I think for me, it's when I needed it in life. I was probably, um, I don't know, maybe by the time I was 30, I was thinking that, I've learned I studied alternative energy, I studied music, I studied uh, cultural history, and I was thinking it's just kind of like not working. It's just like not working. And I really didn't know why. And by then, I actually had a degree of some sort and couldn't apply it. I had the information, but couldn't apply it. So for my own reasons, I took the study a study class, how to study.
Hmm.
It was called, I think it was Study Skills for Life. Was a real basic introductory course.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out was, number one, you have to understand the words. I mean, you really have to understand them, not just imagine what it is or
Right.
feel good about it or go, oh, that's a nice word. Oh, I heard that word before. It's like, what does that word really mean? And so using a dictionary was important. And starting at the beginning of the course, was I would like to maybe go to the second page and the third page out of interest, and then the teacher, the trainer would come back and go, no, no, no. You have to go to part number 2 after number 1.
Right.
So, okay, and that was the discipline.
Right.
The discipline. And in that course, I learned that words were important. Also, the thing I think was really good in learning theory in modern education, it's considered the exception if if an instructor knows how to conduct the class in a way that meets a student's needs as to whether they like to see things visually, or like to hear things, or like to touch things, or like to apply things, or like to ponder things, or like to solve problems. One thing I found in that course was that course actually addressed all of those things.
Wow.
There were some recorded aspects of it that I would listen and I would apply, and I would read as I would listen, and things went right in order. You did number one, and you read what number one said, made sure you understood the words. You would apply number one. You might even find a way to demonstrate it in the world. So it already handled all the learning styles, which I learned about learning styles after this, because I ended up teaching college for a while. And they said, well, you have to learn. They gave you a mini course on learning styles. And I went, I already know how to do that, because just do a check sheet. Check sheet, it goes in order. And another thing too, excuse me, a thing called gradients, where you don't skip. That's what I was doing. I was going from page one. I was interested. Oh, what's on page four? No, Dan, go back to page one. And the increases in the concepts add up, the applications add up, but they do it in a way that gets more and more builds on the previous one. It's like going up a hill, step at a time, or going up a staircase. And that's called a gradient. And so if you skip any of those gradients, like I did when I went to page 3, because that was fun, then I wouldn't know what was on page 2. Another one, if you go too far and you look at something that's a concept that's beyond what you're building in the entrance level or in any level, if you skip forward and you put your attention on a concept that's beyond what it is you're prepared for, you're unprepared, and then you have something, imagination or reaction, or something happens that didn't add to what you were building previous to that. So jumping too far is really not handy at all in any way. And so I ended up teaching college after a while, and I found that as a college professor, there were no courses in teaching. And I find that today I'm helping out here at the local college in the music department as a mentor to some of the young players. And very bright guys who know the content very well and can apply it have never been offered a method to present the material in an organized way to their students. It doesn't mean they're not naturally good teacher, because a lot of them are intuitively very handy people, but there just are a lot of things that don't get them the product that they want in a predictable way. See, so that's another thing. You get some prediction with making sure you go in order, you understand the words, and then you can do it on a gradient. So in music, in all industries, or all study endeavors, there's nomenclature. There's the words that apply to this in preparation for the things that you're going to study, right? Yeah. And so I had a chance to use this study method, this study materials. I've used it. I became a corporate trainer.
Oh, wow.
I taught. I had a classroom for 4 years where I taught physicians, dentists, lawyers, tradesmen, other teachers, and it was very successful for about 4 years. And then I moved on and did something else. But the same methods also worked when I went and I took a job as a substance abuse rehabilitation coordinator, right? And so people who were trying to rebuild their life were also trying to rebuild how to learn so that you could learn how to do your life in order on a gradient. Same thing. What's a nomenclature? Sobriety. Take the words one at a time. So it helped in that. So I used it for myself, the study tech. I used it in a corporate environment. I used it in a the rehabilitation for 10 years. I worked as a coordinator in. So then I did something interesting in that substance abuse place. I started a music program. So the people, yeah, it was fun. It was really fun, and took a couple of years for me to kind of understand what the gradient was, what the nomenclature was, and what the right words are, and what to do, what the actions are, how do you apply it, But I did get it, I finally got it. And one of the things I found is musicians, the Western culture thinks music started with the printed word. When where I was working in Manistee, there are a lot of Native American people who have a wonderful intact tradition for how to communicate with instruments and gestures and things like that. So I kind of looked at their ways, and the one thing I did learn is, where's the starting point with music? Music starts before the written music. Music starts at birth. I mean, a baby communicates with you with sound, the earth, there's sound everywhere in the planet, and so what we did is we built a program on communication and on a gradient, and emotions would come into that. We would try to have people communicate with their emotions. So we started with the drum circles like the Native American folks do, but they also were allowed to do it on instruments. So you and I would communicate. If you play guitar and I played drums, I would go dun dun dun, and you would go dun dun dun, and then part of the drill would be do it happier, dun dun dun, and then you would have to answer me back. Then we'd go around the whole room, and each person would communicate to the next person. Then that next person would have to acknowledge that they got communicated and pass it on to the other person. And so we would do it in various emotional tones or experiences, and it was great, and we ended up doing well. Here's the thing. Okay, I had in the business world, I used for myself. I used it to study technology, then I used it in the business world, and I used it in the rehab centers. I used it I had a separate building where when people were graduating, they could come in and they could review the study technology and take some additional courses. What was nice about that, since I had the facility, guess what happened? Some of the people in the neighborhood whose kids were being homeschooled said, "Hey, Dan, can you teach my kids?" I says, "Well, I'm not going to teach them, but they can come in and use our course room. They can come in here and they can take these courses, the study tech course, and they can even use the tables and the facilities and all that and for getting through the class themselves, right?" So we offered the neighborhood kids. Then guess what happened? The Chamber of Commerce came, and they came in and they started using their course room. And guess what they were learning? How to study, on a gradient. Of course, we added a communication course to that at some point. But so the same exact technology, the same exact insight, the same exact procedure helped business people, helped young children, helped families, Chamber of Commerce, helped the musicians. It's the exact same insight. And it was done in advance of the modern colleges saying, "Hey, maybe you want to apply what you learn, or maybe you should look up the words, because we've forgotten a lot of that. That was in our early Western civilization style of training,
Right.
And so the material we have, it work for anybody.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. That's actually quite a inspiring story. First of all, you've had a very full life. And your ability to, I never really thought of it, but the methods we're talking about of how to study, they really do, they kind of cross all the barriers between different professions, different ages, and different activities and whatever. I've never really, it's kind of really cool to see someone who's actually done that and then talk about how it is universal.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks. Appreciate it.
yeah. How neat. Wow. Okay. So a couple questions about the things you brought over because they're all very interesting. You mentioned that you were training professionals from many different professions on learning how to study. What types of benefits did these people get from what you were teaching them and then applying it in their life?
Well, I think it happens on a number of, it sort of spreads, it lets you also know that you may not have communicated in an orderly way on a gradient to an employee. You may not have developed your company in a orderly way. You may not have been clear about the words that you use. They may not have meant the same thing to the person you were talking to. So it's self-reflection. I think for a guy that's already out in the world, you start realizing that there's an order to the ways these things can be done to be more effective. And I have to be mindful of that. I have to know what I intend to talk about and know how somebody could apply it, but doing it in an order that builds, so we don't jump their attention to something else so they go blank on what we're doing right now. So I think every profession that I saw there had some cognition, whether they were developing an organizational chart so that they have clarity on what their organization would build into, or they wanted to look at what performance they were developing in terms of their statistics. All of it required some form of understanding what they're looking at, what the words mean, what order they should be in, and putting somebody newly on a job or doing a performance evaluation. Have I asked things in an orderly way of this employee? Have I asked them to perform in a way that's predictable, that's on a gradient? Does he understand what his job is? And, and a lot of those people, I think they retrained people because of that and reset their priorities because they learned a way to look into the future that meant you have to go in order.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So not only did these professionals, business owners, executives, whatever, learn how to study for themselves and be able to learn their profession better and how to manage things better, but they actually learned how to be a better boss or create that group, that business in a way that led to prosperity and cohesion and all of that, it sounds like.
Yeah. And, I think they could care in a more methodical way about their employees and their business rather than rant and rave on a gradient. You're not doing your job. It's like, oh, let's do this. Oh, did we miss something? Let's go back. Let's clean that up,
Right.
And the study technology becomes a very broad view of life. It's a very narrow method, not narrow, but it's a very framed method, but it applies every time you want to view something. Am I looking at an order? Do I know the words? What's the nomenclature? It builds into other things,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Care in a very methodical way. That's great. I'm gonna steal that if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Okay, great. And then you also, so there's so many different things that you did with study technology and these methods of learning. Let me ask you about you personally as a musician. You were already practicing professionally and established and knew your stuff. Did you use the study technology to take things to a new level or apply it to music?
Well, actually, recently, I've had a new experience doing that, actually. It's very interesting. I was playing, with a local group, just casually in town, and a guy comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and he says, Dan, would you, my wife plays piano, would you teach my wife how to play piano? Like jazz style, and I said, well, sure. He said, well, I'll give you some money. It's okay. Come. He was very nice about it, very simple, And when I went to the house, I found out that she was a very high-level classical player. I mean, she accompanied university professors in their concerts and guys doing their graduate concerts and things like that. And I'm I'm watching her play. And I went, sure, this is going to work great. And I started laughing at myself. However, what I did do is I realized that she didn't know the nomenclature of jazz. She didn't know the words. She was not even at the beginning of the gradient scale of trying to learn how to play jazz. So I had to walk her back to be herself, not to be the other guy, not to be the sheet music, but the piano was going to be a voice for you. So we went right back to the beginning. What's the purpose of what we're doing? It has some things in common with what you've been doing. It's the instrument and the facility, which she has great facility. So I set up a course, and it took some work. There isn't any quite like this that I could find. And I searched the internet. I found a couple of doctoral theses who kind of talked about it, but didn't show you how to do it, And so I started right at the beginning, what is jazz? What is self-expression? What is creativity? Who am I? And then they had to do some things like, why are you doing this? What's the point? And then we built a customized approach for her. And we had a step 1 and we have step 2, and words she had to know at the beginning, things she had to do. Even though she could do things 1,000 times more difficult in the classical world, it was grade 0 in the music world, the self-expression. So we had to do some exercises to get her comfortable with the fact that it's going to be her music. It's going to be her decisions. It's going to be her emotions. It's going to be her sound, and we're building up. And then how do you do that? Because there's a couple of things could happen. One is there's a tradition in jazz of a list of tunes, maybe 50 tunes, all jazz people are supposed to play. So we agreed that we would put those as our portions of our future study. But there's also a great catalog of music that she already knows. Chopin, Debussy, Bach, What are we going to do about that? How's that going to fit in? So we found a way to insert those things that she's familiar with and extract the pieces that work and match what our lesson is. And then now we're going to compare that to what the jazz guy would do, so we validated and used what she knew and didn't realize could apply across the board, then finally there's there's the traditional jazz, there's the classical music that people learn, trained people learn. And then now a third thing happens. She becomes her own music, which isn't either of those two. She can interpret jazz any way she wants, because that's the goal of it. I don't predict that, or not interpret it. She plays classical music as she should, however that's determined. But there's also the thing that comes from her. Like if she's playing some chords or decides not to play a chord, that's okay too. We have 3 tracks that we're looking at simultaneously, and that starts at grade 0. Lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. Be yourself. Here's a chord. Okay, what kind of tempo we're going to take this at? So it's taken some work for me to match that up. It took a while to see how it goes. And I think I can apply this to, the result is, I kind of talk it over myself. The result is I've been drawing in 3 or 4 other similarly qualified players who didn't know I was doing this and didn't know anything about her. And I just would talk to them. I met this other woman at a different job that I was playing, and she starts talking. She says, well, can I take some lessons? I'm thinking, here we go. It's coming from starting to land,
Yeah.
So I'm prepared to do it, and the thing is, without the study technology, I wouldn't have known how to extract pieces in an organized way, in words in an organized way, in competence in an organized way. I would have just been kind of guessing, but in music, when something's a little more difficult, you can kind of work that out. So I'm kind of excited. I think I found a niche for myself, actually, people that probably going to do a lot more teaching, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's so cool. Yeah, I've never heard of somebody doing that, taking a person's existing knowledge base in music and then turning it into a person who can play jazz and
Yeah,
express
or
themselves.
even personal
Yeah,
music.
personal music.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's
Awesome.
a, it's been a surprise that that worked, because
Yeah.
I thought, well, just keep the rules, Dan. Just do it in order.
Yeah. Nice. So cool. Wow. Okay. So again, another example of the many ways in which this method of training people to study so that they can then become themselves and learn things and interact better. It's just so applicable across so many areas. So you also talked about using this to teach, young students and kind of create their education. How did that work for you, and what successes did you notice in that area?
Well, the thing I like is associated with this insight into teaching and this training method is a home study curriculum that can be used that's compatible with what we do. And the nice thing about it is that after a student studies the course material, they're required to do a project that applies what it is that they just studied. So I let when I was at the rehab center, my building was separate in the end, the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I allowed homeschoolers to come in and use our facility and interact with the graduating patients. We were okay with that. Everybody had to sign off that they were okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could come in, and if you had to do a drill, we had to practice something or interact with somebody, they would. It was nice because the patients were re-entering the community, and the community was coming in just having fun, and some of these things required you to go for a walk and you check some things out, come back and report about it. Sometimes you had to build something with your hands or with clay,
Mm-hmm.
So it was really enlightening to me that we're not doing that in school. The kids don't learn what to do with what they are studying. So it's a piece that I didn't quite realize the magnitude of how much of it was missing,
Yeah.
And so it was a learning for me. And I was more sold on this after that, even though I'd been doing this in some capacity for 20 years,
Wow.
But when I saw the young child really happily doing a project, I can't wait till I get home. I'm going to fix this. I went, really? You're enthused about school? Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And they've gone on. I've kept track of a few of them, and they've gone on and they've done well. Same thing with the patients too, though. The patients. One thing when you work in rehab, you never know who's going to make it and who's not. You can't predict. They just can't predict. But I can tell you on a regular, every day, I hear back from somebody.
Wow.
And we've been closed because of COVID for 5 years, but people intentionally still using the information and going on past it to other things using that information.
Wow. How inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's people ask you, how's your life? And I say, pretty good, really.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's so cool. Wow. Well, I have to ask you, how did you end up with what was it, the Chamber of Commerce in your course room?
Really easy. I went and got them. I just went and invited them over. I let them have their meetings in my room, in my facility, a nice facility, a couple of blocks from the lake, kind of like if you think of like an Eagles club, it was a closed Eagles club. So we had a nice little, I call it the romper room where they could, play ping pong and stuff like that. And where there was a bar in one place, so we turned it into a juice bar. So we got a nice facility, and the community was glad to see us reopen it because it was just sitting vacant in a very small community. So we just cleaned it up, painted it up, and just used it like it was, And of course, the town was comfortable in seeing what we were producing too, helping people.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
And how did
we did the senior citizens. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
That's right.
we did the senior citizens similarly. We went into their building and gave them a sort of a mini lesson, on things like that, and it was fun, and it was received.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. You hit
yeah,
all groups.
yep,
How did
yep.
you end up teaching the Chamber of Commerce about study technology and how to study?
Well, it was real simple. I invited them to. I opened the book. I said, "Here's how you do it. Here are the tables. Why don't you sit down and start?" It was that. It was really that easy. By the time we got to be friends with them,
Right.
it really was. It
Wow.
was not difficult at all.
That's so neat. So cool. Wow. I'm very impressed. So,
It's not hard. The thing is, it's all you have to do is find out what they need. What are you
yeah,
trying to solve? That was the biggest learning for me. You always, as a helper, you want to really help. So I'll look at you and I'll figure you out. And I'll get the solution for you, and then I'll make sure that you do my solution. Well, that's not it at all. What are they trying to solve? Just help them do that. We
wow.
went to the. Um, I spoke to some of the people at the jail. Are there some guys on probation that could use help? We didn't get any, but we if we would have stayed open, we would have. But we had kids who had dropped out of school, guys who were unemployed, who were just walking the streets. Come on in here and do a course. We didn't, a lot of times I would just hand them the book and say, just sit down and study. I didn't always ask. Depends. If there was enough donations to where we had extra books, so if somebody needed some help, asking who needs help. That's another thing in a small town, and it works in a big town. If you get small portions of the population,
Mhm.
Find out who the leaders are. That's another thing too. That complements this. If you pay attention to who the leaders are, and you ask the leaders who needs help,
Mhm.
and then offer to help, you'd be surprised what will walk in your door. It's really not hard.
Wow.
You
Very
don't you
cool.
don't want it to be hard.
No.
It's not worth it.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
too many
I
people that'll
agree.
come.
Very cool. Well, let me ask you this. So my partner at the Competence Institute is Mike Tyler, and I know you guys have known each other for a long time.
Yes.
How did you come to know Mike and work with him on study technology or learn about what he's doing with that?
Okay. Mike and I met. I was a professional musician um, in the Caribbean, kind of West Indies, and I was playing for a convention that Mike attended, and we started talking, and my tour there was pretty much ending, and I was I was either going to go to Africa, or I was going to go to Florida, or I was going to come back to Michigan. And Mike said, "Well, look, I have some places to rent, and why don't you just come back?" Because I'm going to have music seminars and things. He had another friend that was doing some music training and does it very well. And I knew some of the people that were in the Battle Creek area because they had moved from Ann Arbor as a group, kind of, and they were building the town and things like that. Some construction guys and study guys and business guys and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So Mike and I flew back from the Caribbean, and he was renting me a place for a while, and
Oh,
one thing led to another. He was also working with our friend Jacob, so
yeah,
I met Jacob, which I'm amazed to see that you've had other people who from that time period
yeah,
who've been on the show. I think Ann is one of the speakers that you've had.
yep.
Wonderful physician,
Mhm.
and so we just started talking. How do you want to help people? What can we do? And just one thing led to another, and it just grew.
Wow.
And we've been friends ever since. Really, great friends,
Yeah,
actually.
nice.
Yeah,
So cool. Yeah, it's when you know this study technology, you can use it to help people. I find people seem to find each other to then help other people. So
that's the
very cool.
common word. Help.
Yes, right?
Yep.
A lot hinges on that little word. So, do you have any success stories that you noticed Mike accomplishing with his application of study technology?
Mike, oh, don't even know where to begin. He's fast, bright, um, willing to help anybody in great depth. I mean, he really knows his stuff.
Mhm.
He really knows his stuff. And I know you folks have organized this group, this organization, and I've read some of his ideas, and he's talked to me on the phone. He's called me on the phone when he's traveling,
Mhm.
and he's a very literate guy, knows the details extraordinarily deep, is very precise and committed. He's not fooling around. This is a big deal. This is a big deal what you guys are doing.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Well, I would say that you are kind of the epitome of a lifelong learner. You're like the perfect example. You've learned in so many areas, taught on so many different levels. What would you say to somebody who wants to become a person like that, wants to become more of a lifelong learner, achieve different accomplishments, be able to do things in different areas? What's your advice to someone in that position as regards to study technology and whatnot?
Well, it's a great question. Probably um, three different streams of thought that I have on that. One is there's something you're doing now that's not going the way you would like it to go, or has gone backwards.
Mhm.
How can you fix that? So I think that's one of the first places to start is to don't abandon something that you need to. You can, if you choose, clean it up or abandon it. I mean, if it needs to end, it needs to end. So you can use study tech for that, cleaning up what it is and also closing it. You can use it how to properly close something. The next one is who needs help. I mean, you can learn to help by learning the study tech. You can learn to interact with somebody in an organized way. It looks intuitive, but it's actually a organized way. When you look at them, you can sense where you might intervene and shape them into a place that's productive. And then the last one is, what's your dream? I mean, I've been on the planet a while. I still have dreams. I really do.
Right.
Things that I want to accomplish, and I show up to do that. So I think that's probably the one that would strike a note with most people is what do you really want to do? What's either something that interests you, something you enjoy, something that you haven't accomplished yet that you would like to really get done, put the stake in the ground. Let's start. I'll tell you what happened to me real quick. COVID hit, right? And everything I was doing stopped. And I had to pay a little medical attention to my body. The companies I was with closed. The economy shut down. Even music, there wasn't any music business. The people just weren't doing anything, So that was something that was a surprise for me. So I had a bunch. I had assembled some. Well, I kept bits and pieces of songs, sounds and songs and ideas that I had recorded, but I kept them over the years. Little things. So I thought, let's see if any of these are songs. So I put a couple of them together, and I sent one to a guy in Brazil. And he played it back to me, recorded it, and I went, yeah. So, and I had never written really intentionally ever, I participated as a group, contributed, but never sat down and said, this is my song, So I played it back, and in the future, will play it for you guys. But it was a good song, Of course, the Brazilian guy killed it. He played. He's a great player. But anyways, it came back, and I was encouraged, and I was a little shocked actually when I heard it. And then time went by, and I did another one. I started helping out at the college, and they have they have a program where senior citizens can just take classes, and I sat through some of the classes, but then I got called on to start helping, start helping the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But so I wrote another song, and I put this county has a Earth Day competition, so I gave them my song. I said, here, see if you like my song, and I won the prize. And Sweetwater Music gave me a present, and I came in first in songwriting for the county.
Wow.
So that was not far after I did the first song. So that's my example of something I had yet to do in life that I'm doing now. I'm writing. I have probably an album written, nice album. Guys play it in the clubs. We're kind of sorting it out, see what's working well. And the classical lady I told you about that was really good. Mm-hmm. Her husband is plays sometimes with the Detroit Symphony, sometimes with the Toledo Symphony. He's a university professor in music. I knew none of that when I met them. Now he's offered to record all my songs. Mm-hmm. Listen to this. He's a tuba player. Okay. He's got a French horn player. His wife plays piano. I have some electric instruments and electric piano. We're going to just play through them. What we get is what we get, and the music will be done. But he's insistent that we do it maybe around Easter. So see how it works. I've had this. I came to this. There used to be a church up north that the young folks used to really like. It was called the River of Life. Great pastor, sort of non-denominational, welcoming anybody and everybody. And I never knew what the River of Life really meant. I kind of like, wow, this is some kind of like secret church thing, because they talk about the river. And one day it hit me. I was there taking the patients there, and I went, I know what that means. It means you get on a raft, you don't tip the raft over, you don't crash it, and you don't know what's around the corner, but you keep your eye on what you want, and eventually, just let the raft go. Just let it go. Don't crash it. And that's it. Just have confidence and keep going, keep looking out there. And that's what happens.
I love it. Very, very inspiring. Yes. Yeah. I feel elevated just by hearing about all these things you've done in your viewpoint on them. It's great. And your application of study technology to make this orderly and how it weaves in and out is just fascinating to me. It's a true application of something to accomplish your goals throughout life. So just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us.
Well, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll wrap up here, but stay on the line for a second. So, all right. Thank you, everybody who's listening. Really appreciate you tuning in for another episode. And thank you, Dan, for sharing everything you did with us. We'll talk to you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Parenting Solutions for Teen and Preteen Education and Behavior today. If today's episode helped you or resonated with you, please share it with a parent who needs to hear it. And don't forget, you can download our free ebooks, The Parent's Survival Guide and the Good Choices booklet. Just use the click here link in the show notes. We'll see you in the next episode.